get started. I don't know, we might have a couple more people come. I might give it another minute. I can talk for just a second. Thanks for coming, everybody. Hi. I'm recording this, so if something happens, you get dropped off, you can go and go back and check it out later. I'll be getting it to the EPICS staff. My name is Dr. Jennifer Bay, and I am a professor in the English department. I'm actually the director of professional and technical writing. Some of you might take English 421, which is tech writing at some point. And we are going to talk about how to take your experiences with EPICS, these great service learning experiences that you're undertaking, and how to actually do something with them, disseminate them, share them with the world. So I will go ahead and share my screen with you while we see if anybody else, I don't think anybody else is going to come, but I'll go ahead and share my screen. So, and I'll kind of go through this. Hopefully we won't have too many more people come in late. Sometimes we do. I am the editor for the Purdue Journal of Service Learning and International Engagement. There's a link on this slide. I sent the slide to somebody, I don't know, did you get it in the notes for today in like your invitation? You did, Troy, you're non, yeah, you got it. So you can follow along if you want. I will go ahead and go through this with you. But you can click on that link to go see the journal and see what it looks like. So really what I want us to do today is I'm going to talk for a little bit, and then I'm going to have you guys do some activities in breakout rooms, and then we'll come back, of course, and kind of talk about what you came up with in your particular group. So we'll talk about what service learning and community engagement is. You might have already heard some of this, about the journal and submission types, why you might want to submit, the process, and how to get started. So service learning and community. What is service learning? You probably heard this with Dr. Payne, I think last week, for those of you who went there. I'll just go through it just in case you didn't. Service learning is usually seen at Purdue as a service activity embedded in a 4-credit course. It's also an activity where students apply knowledge and skills from their discipline during that service. So it's not just that you go out and pick up trash on the side of the road, but it's somehow connected to what you're learning in the particular class. It addresses a specific need within a community, an organization, or a group. The need may be identified by the community partner, the student, instructor, or could be a social issue or humanitarian issue. So the need can be identified by lots of different people. It doesn't have to be obvious. Sometimes it might be something that a partner comes to you with. It could be something you are noticing that no one else has seen before. And then the student learning comes from reflecting on that experience, usually in writing, sometimes in discussion, but usually sometimes at some point a focus on reflection where you're really thinking about, how did I know what to do in that situation? How do I apply what I'm learning to that situation? Why was this important? And then it's a method really to process that experience, apply course content, and then understand your personal and social values. I think those values become really clear when you're doing service learning. So what is this journal, Purdue Journal of Service Learning? Well, it's a multidisciplinary open access journal available in print and online, dedicated to publishing student-driven work that centers on service learning and academic civic engagement. And our goal in the journal is, by involving you all in this publishing activity and showcasing the opportunities available, that we're able to highlight how effective service learning is. So to kind of put it in a framework you guys would understand for EPICS, it's really highlighting what EPICS has done for you and for the community partner and for communities around Indiana and really around the world, right? And then really showing how Purdue has made that impact and how important it is. So that's really what it does. So we've had a lot of students publish from EPICS and from engineering in general, because you guys are doing great projects. Your work is really making an impact in the world. It's really helping people. It's helping progress in so many different areas. And you're also learning a lot as well. You're learning about yourself, what you value, what you might want to do when you get out of school, and also how engineering specifically can make a difference in the world. It's not just something that you do to make lots of money or something that you enjoy, but it's something that can really enrich the lives and benefit the lives of so many people. So here are some benefits to submitting to the journal. One is that you get to write with guidance from a faculty member or community mentor. So everyone who publishes in the journal has a faculty member or another mentor that they're going to work closely with to develop their article or their contribution. So sometimes I serve as faculty mentors if a student needs help with something. Sometimes it can be another person. It can be, you know, a staff member. Sometimes it can be somebody else in the community, but you get to select that person, or we'll assign that person for you. It really is a simple process, or it starts as a simple process with guided questions. Every single rubric that we have for each of the types of submissions have questions on them that you can answer. You can even sit and answer those questions and then start to shape it into an essay. You really learn a lot about academic publishing. Those of you who want to go get your master's and your PhDs, this is a great opportunity to learn more about academic publishing. You get to publish in a review journal. So faculty review your submissions, give feedback, tell you whether you're accepted or not. Maybe you need to revise before it's acceptable. They go ahead and do that. I read all your submissions, give feedback. It really looks good on your resume, your CV, your applications to graduate programs or to jobs. You also have an opportunity to present your experiences at a poster session in the spring. And really maybe the larger, higher reason is you get to showcase your contributions to society. It really showcases what you did and how it's an impact. So I'm going to go through the submission types. And again, you can click on the link. We're getting ready to come out with a brand new issue. It should be out next week, probably, actually, the fall 2020 issue. And there's some great articles in it. So I encourage you to go back and look at it here in a week or two when it comes out on the website. We publish it both in print and online. Obviously this fall, we're not doing as many print copies. We usually have a much larger run. And if we were in class right now, if we were in a real setting, you all would get a print copy of the journal. If you do want a print copy, you can always shoot an email to me. My email's at the end of this PowerPoint. And I'm happy to get one to you. I am actually going on campus a few days a week, so I could leave one outside my door for you if you're on campus, or we can figure out some way to get it to you. But there are 5 submission types. The first is a reflective essay. The second is research with reflection. The third is a shorter community partner snapshot, and similarly a shorter faculty profile interview. And then finally, this is a fairly new category we have called community-inspired cover art, where we're really looking for something where you might have be a great photographer, or maybe you're an artist, or maybe you know someone who's in your team who is an artist, and they have done some graphic work for your project. They've taken some photographs that really capture the spirit of community engagement or service learning. This is a good example of Chanel Beebe, who's actually who's in engineering at Purdue. And she's actually an artist on the side. And she did this piece. She had it. I kind of just stumbled upon her because she was doing an exhibit downtown of her work. And I was like, oh, do you want to submit this? And it's really great because it's trying to really capture some experiences she has with community. And so I'll tell you more about that cover art here in a minute. So the reflective essay, we have mostly reflective essays in the journal. Reflective essays and research with reflection are the dominant types. The reflective essay is really intended to describe and critically reflect on your service learning or community engagement experience. It's about 3,500 words and it's student authored. So a lot of you are already doing reflections on your projects. So this is a perfect opportunity to take all that together. put it together in an essay. Research with reflection is to describe and critically reflect on a student's engagement experience and demonstrate its impact. And it'll include a literature review or employ quantitative, qualitative, or mixed methods research. And the students are authors on that, but there's often secondary authorship by a faculty member or community partner. So examples of that might be research with reflection, that maybe you went and did some studies on water quality in Guatemala with your professor, and you were trying to help improve the water quality for a particular community in that country. And so you might be able to publish on how your interventions impacted that community. Your scientific and engineering, scholarly work was actually able to make a difference. So that's the difference between those two. Really, it's the reflective essay is just your experiences, what happened, how you made a difference, and then the research with reflection is really showing how the research you're working on, maybe in a lab or with a professor, actually shows impact or results qualitatively or quantitatively. The community partner snapshot is a shorter, usually 1,000-word piece that describes the mission and vision of a community partner and highlights potential engagement opportunities for students with the organization or its clients. So this might be shorter. Maybe you've worked with Almost Home Humane Society and you really think it's a great place where lots of other students might want to do some work and they need volunteers. So you can really describe it and talk about different engagement opportunities for Purdue. The faculty profile interview is really intended to describe a faculty member's use of service learning as a teaching methodology, their personal and professional engagement activities, as well as the impact on student learning in the community. It's about 1,500 words. And just to give you a hint, Dr. Andrew Pierce hasn't been profiled. So if any of you know him, who's the head of this program, and I see some smiles out there, this would be a great article. I would love to feature him in the next issue. And he just did a lot of work, as you guys might know, on doing the COVID PPE. Anybody remember that? He was really involved in that. So that might be a really great opportunity to kind of highlight who he is and what he does. And then finally, as I mentioned, the community-inspired cover art. It's really artwork, photography, digital design, graphic illustration that captures the spirit of community engagement. Part of what you do for that is you will write what's called an artist statement. It's usually a couple of paragraphs about what you were trying to do or what you think that photograph was doing, to show how learning and community engagement can really be conveyed in different ways. I have a lot of people come to me and said, I don't really want to write this big essay, or I don't want to I've done some research, but I'm a photographer on the side, or I'm an artist on the side, or I know somebody who's taken some photographs of my experiences. And I think some of them are really powerful and they really capture how my learning was happening. And so we really want to make room to show that community engagement can be demonstrated in different ways. So let me go through the publishing process before we break out into groups. The first is, of course, select a submission type that fits your goal. We've kind of talked about that. You'll want to describe what you plan to write in about 250 to 500 words. And we're going to get started on that now a little bit. So usually students submit an abstract sometime before January, and then submit your intent to write an article by going to the website and writing an article. And then you'll want to wait for a couple weeks for us to respond to it. And after that, you'll receive an email of acceptance. You'll want to contact your writing mentor contact me if you need to. You'll respond to the questions and the guidelines to create a draft. You'll want to format your citations and include photos and acknowledgments. You're going to upload your first submission to the journal website, and then we send it out to review. Right? That usually takes maybe a month, which is pretty quick for academic publishing. Then you'll make any requested changes or edits and resubmit it. Sometimes when we get the abstract or we get the full article, it just doesn't work. It's not really appropriate. We try to look at the abstract and make sure it does there. We try to get to that point, but sometimes there's a lot of work that has to be done to get it to be published. And so you really have to be proactive about it and make sure you're kind of on top of things and really have that time to work to revise it. You'll resubmit it, and then if it's accepted, then it'll go to the press to have you review things. A lot of times students need 2, sometimes 3 times to revise and resubmit. It won't be that you turn something in and I mark your grammar and then it's like, oh, okay, it's good. It'll be you send it, and there's usually a lot that needs to be included, like maybe you need to have more details. Maybe you need to explain more of the impact on you and the community partner. Maybe you have sections that don't really fit, but you might be able to add something different there. So be aware, you'll have some work to do on it, but we're here to help you, and we're going to be walking with you through that and helping you really shape it to the point where it gets to be published. And then you'll be published usually the following fall. So what we're going to do, we're going to get started and we're going to look at this worksheet, and I'll just pump through this. But before I do that, before we go to do that, let me go back for a second because I want to click on the journal and I want to show you something. Sorry, it's taken forever. I want to show you something before we do that. And that's this. So I want to pull this up and I want to tell you about the submissions for this fall, which are 2 special sections. And we have you can submit on your normal EPICS project. That's no big deal. But we're also going to have 2 special sections. The first is going to be on service learning during COVID. You guys are in it right now, right? You're nodding, I can see it. So I want you to think about what submissions you might want to send out that can capture the challenges and innovations that have emerged from doing service learning and community engagement work. Many of you were doing this in the spring. You were brought home from it. This fall, you've had to do remote service learning. What are the challenges and impacts on students and partners? What service learning activities have emerged in response to COVID? I mentioned that Dr. Andrew Pierce has done a great job at doing the PPE this summer. Some of you might have been involved in that or know about it. What innovations or new knowledge were developed that enhance service learning? And in what ways did students and communities benefit despite this setback? So that's the first section. The second section is a focus on Black Lives Matter and service learning. And we're really looking for proposals that address racial diversity, equity, and inclusion in service learning. Have students learn use their academic training as activists? Or how have movements like Black Lives Matter been enriched by student voices and academic perspectives? How has service learning impacted students' personal development, such as racial identity development, awareness of systemic racism and racial privilege? And then perhaps most importantly, how did Black Lives Matter in service learning? Really thinking about what service learning is, what service learning could be. And we're really encouraging people who might have intersections in those 2 areas, especially how COVID-19 has illuminated systemic racial inequalities and the challenges and rewards of mobilizing for racial justice during a pandemic. And we're really looking to strongly amplify marginalized student and faculty voices so that we might expand service learning, both the audience and our authorship. So those are 2 new special sections. So I really encourage you guys, if you're interested in either of those, you have experiences in either of those, to really think strongly about submitting to those. So let me go back all the way and get back here to where we're at to get started. So what I'd like us to do is, if you click on here, there's a worksheet. I want you to copy it. Make sure you copy it first. Don't just type into it, right? So make a copy. You guys know how to do that. You go to File, make a copy, right? And it'll make your copy. You can share it in your own drive. And go ahead and I'd like you to take about 10 minutes to fill it out. And then I'm going to have you get into breakout groups. And I'm going to go ahead and make the breakout groups. And you can share them and talk about them. What are you thinking about doing? Are you not thinking about doing anything? Is there something you'd like to do? Is there something you'd not like to do? Do you have questions, right? Any of those kinds of things. Yes, Rachel's asking me to show us how you got to the form again. If you go to the slide deck, oops, sorry about that. I went back. I can also put it in the chat. Let me just put it in the chat, and that way you'll have it. I'll just put this in the chat for you. There you go. If you think about that, so what I'd like to do is maybe write for about till like 2 o'clock, and then we'll get into groups for about 10 minutes, and then we'll report back. Does that sound good? So make sure you guys make a copy of it first, Rachel. So make a copy. Make a copy. There you go. Make a copy first, right? And put it in your drive. So I'm going to let you guys work for about 10 minutes, and then I'll dump you into groups, okay? Yeah? And I'll stop sharing for a minute. You guys, how are you doing? Are you about done or do you need another minute? You can put it in the chat or shout out. Okay, yeah, I'll give you another 2 minutes and then we'll split off into a couple groups. All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and split you up. Even if you're not done, it's okay. I'm going to go ahead and create breakout rooms and let you kind of go off for about 10 minutes and just share what you wrote and what you're thinking about, kind of where you might be stuck or where you're thinking, oh, I want to do this. And then we'll come back for the last couple minutes and see if you have questions or talk about it a little bit, okay? So I'm just going to dump you into the breakout rooms. Y'all know how to do this. And you can ask for help if you need it, okay? Okay, you guys, I think we're all back, or almost everyone's back. We're kind of waiting. Sometimes it's slow coming back into these rooms. So we only have a few minutes left. I know some of you might have class at 2:30. Although I don't know if you're going anywhere for that class, maybe you're just staying here on Zoom, right? Maybe we can just, each of you could take a couple minutes, not each person, but each group could take a couple minutes to talk about things that came up in your small group, questions you had, what you're thinking about doing, what you're not sure about. Rachel, do you want to start in your group, or whoever was in your group? I don't remember, sorry.
Sure, I can. So we kind of discussed like what our projects are and like how they relate to the majors that we're in, or like our own interests. So basically like why are we interested in the projects that we're in, and then like what was surprising to us about the projects or how we've seen them grow over time. Like Caitlin was sharing about her project and like how that was with kids and how she used to be on Deaf Kids Code, and like how some teams are able to make projects really quickly if they have a lot of seniors and experience, and other people have like fewer skills and they have to go out and learn those things. And Troy was sharing a lot about how he got to see his project from like the baby stages all the way up through like the more developed stages, since he actually introduced his project and was like the brainchild of that. So he got to like introduce something, say, hey, what if we do this to help out our community, and actually went and did it.
That's great. So are you guys thinking you might submit something, or as a team or individually? You're thinking about it? Yeah, it'd be great. I'd love to see it. Is anybody in your group, did they talk about COVID or talk about racial? No, nobody talked about COVID. Has it changed at all since COVID? Anybody? How so? Kind maybe.
I know for our team, like when we had to go home, the lab shut down before we knew it would. And so we didn't have access to any of our resources, even to take back with us that we thought we would for the rest of the semester. And so we were trying to make this progress. We had a lot of things that we had to test. And it's really hard to test something that you don't have. And so we were trying to be really like explorative in the ways that we were doing that. Like we did a lot of research online about like what the best products would be to like get a head start, and like lots of learning happening online. But it was really frustrating because we couldn't access the parts of the project we needed to make the progress we wanted to.
Yeah, that would might be really interesting to write about as a constraint, right? As like what happened during COVID, how did it change? How did it delay? Or maybe even how it like made you think about the project differently, right? Maybe you had to go to a different source. For example, a lot of researchers now, and I'm in contact with some other researchers on the West Coast who are in psychology, totally in a different context, but they've told me that they're starting to actually develop different, going back to certain types of articles that they're publishing, systematic reviews, because they can't do work with human participants, right? Because of COVID. So that's kind of changing the way their research is. So that's interesting. Jonah, I see you there. Before we run out of time, can you tell us about what happened in your group and give us a little rundown, or Lainey or Erin could do it too if you want.
Sure. So a lot of what we talked about kind of revolved around the impact of our projects and how we've been able to impact the communities that we're serving and how that has impacted our experiences as college students. So we have a wide range of projects. Erin is working on Imagination Station, which is in West Lafayette, and that serves the community and promotes the sciences. And Lainey's project is regarding education in Haiti, enhancing that with different labs. And my project is regarding installing a water distribution system in the community of Bolivia with Engineers Without Borders, Purdue. And yeah, are there any specific questions?
No, that's great. Are you, let's see, for your water project, who are you, what professors are working, who are you working with for that?
Our advisors are Sue Khalifa, Paul Leidig, and Professor Oakes has been helping in a lot too.
Great. So that would be great to submit something on that. Any of these projects sound great to submit on. And to think about, and that the international context, that's part of our journal title is international engagement. So that's really interesting too, how COVID might have affected that, right? Working with diverse populations and people who are different, not in US context, right? Might be really interesting too. We're out of time. Sorry. And I know you have class. Some of you might have class at 2:30. I'm going to put my Gmail in the chat so you can share. If you did a document like this, you can share it with me if you want me to get feedback. Put a little note in there and say, hey, I was in your EPICS seminar today. Could you give me some feedback on what I've written on this kind of worksheet and how I might be able to submit it? I'm happy to do that. It's just an easy way to share information. And you can also, my email is, I'll share my screen again. It's on the slides. If I can find them here. It's on the slides, and you can go ahead and email me if you want. It's jbay@purdue.edu. You could email the Gmail too, I guess, if you want. But you can ask me questions. I'm so thrilled. If you guys want to submit, I would love to see your work and hear more about what you have to say. We might, since we're now doing Zoom all day, all the time, right? We might have some kind of Zoom session we could have for potential authors to like get feedback and talk, like open office hours, something like that. So look for something like that soon. You guys have any questions before we're done? Anything? Well, thanks for coming. Listen, take care, okay? Don't get too stressed out because it's a stressful semester. I understand. So look forward to hearing from you more about your article submissions, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Professor.
Bye. Take care.
Hi, I had a quick question.